Please use your chat feature at the bottom of the screen, and Sarah will get to the questions as they appear. Near the end, there's a better chance to get unmuted for questions and answers. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter, who will give his perspective as a pediatrician on early brain and childhood development. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dipesh Navsaria, an associate professor at UW School of Medicine and Public Health. Doctor?
Great, thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone today. I will just get my slides shared up here and we will get going from there. Okay. So yes, very pleased to be joining you from my office at UW-Madison. I'm also not only at the School of Medicine Public Health, but also as of just a few weeks ago, have a joint appointment in the School of Human Ecology as well in Human Development and Family Studies. So let's start off by spending a few minutes talking about the world of early brain and child development, including some key things that I want to lay out that the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child laid out over 10 years ago, but that are still extraordinarily valid and have been even more well supported by the research. Brains are building really fast early on. There are as many as 700 or even more, according to some research, new neural connections happening per second in the developing brain. We want to take advantage of that because this is happening during infancy and toddlerhood, and the brain does not wire at that same speed ever again. So this is really an important period that we want to make sure we're thinking about this. We see differences between children based on their environments. As early as 18 months, we can measure disparities in vocabulary. These are 3 different socioeconomic groups, and you can see this is their receptive vocabulary, their ability to understand words. And you can see that's a big difference already between the richest group and the others by 18 months. And by 24 months, the middle class group and those living in poverty split apart as well. And this is all before they even start preschool, which is the very right edge of this graph. So we know that there's differences that are measurable, and it has to do with environments and experiences that children are in. Because we know that there's a 3-legged stool for thinking about children's development and health. Sure, there's the biological factors. We look at this all the time in medicine, healthcare, et cetera, right? All these different factors that we know make a difference, and they are important, which is why we look at them. But guess what? It's not only that. There's also, as I just noted, the socioeconomic environment that children are in. That this notion that a child's zip code is more determinant of their outcome than their genetic code is absolutely true. So we need to recognize that. And that means also we can change that. We can change that socioeconomic environment based on the decisions we make as a society. But then we also realized it wasn't just the broader environment that children are in. It's not just those large scale factors. It's also the microenvironments they're in. Who's at home? Who's in their early childhood center? Who's in their neighborhood? How are those folks interacting with children? And are they doing so in confident and productive ways? And those attachment and relationship patterns are kind of the third piece of the stool here. And that brings me to the 4th point, that there's 2 things that influence the architecture of that developing brain, what we just referenced as 700 neural connections per second, right? That it's the genes, which are the blueprint of how those neurons wire to one another, but then also experiences that tell what neurons to wire for what purpose and for what reason. And it's like having a campfire. You need both of these things. You need wood and you need a spark in order to get that flame going. But you can't have one without the other. Now, we can't modify genes so much, won't spend time on that today, but we can modify experiences. And how do we modify experiences? Well, it's through policies we set up, programs we enact, and through the interactions that we have. And if you asked me what's the central thing, the thing that matters the most, it's what we call this back and forth engagement that children have in the context of safe, stable, and nurturing relationships. And okay, that sounds a little hokey, right? Nurturing relationships, et cetera. The research is profound, though, about how that back and forth, that positive connection, that responsivity is actually the thing that drives development forward. Not apps, not learning DVDs, things like that. In children under 3, the only thing that drives development forward is this back and forth serve and return, like in tennis, that children do with loving, caring adults around them. Okay, as one of my colleagues once said, there is no app to replace your lap, and he's absolutely correct in that. And we also know that if we get it right early on, we're going to see big, big differences that are really positive down the road. As Frederick Douglass told us, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Okay, so what is the solution? What can we do about all this? I won't give you one magic solution because there is no one magic solution, but we can think about principles. We can do things that build capabilities. How do we help a parent understand how to do good shared reading with their child? We can build capacity. The parent who says, I would love to read to my child every night, but I'm working my second job because that's how we make ends meet. So I'm not home to read. I want to do it. I know how to do it. I'm not able to do it. Fine, let's build that capacity. Let's do things that are based in homes and communities and not make people come somewhere else. Address root causes, have long-term effects, use a prevention mindset rather than a treatment mindset. Leverage those key first 1,000 days of life. Use evidence to guide you, but don't let evidence trap you into being the only thing, okay? Otherwise, you'll do the same 12 things over and over. And finally, here's the important thing. We need things we can take to scale, right? Small demonstration projects are great. They help us figure out principles of things, so on. But if we can't scale them, then ultimately they don't end up helping anything more than a small number of people. So we need to think about the scalability and implementation issues as well. Because if we want to have productive, happy adults, which I think is a good outcome, we need them to be educationally successful. They need to have that good brain circuitry primed for school success. That comes from those early experiences. That comes from those nurturing, responsive interactions. That means the adults around them need to be able to put these things into action, have the capabilities, capacities. This is just me summarizing the chain of events of everything I've just told you. And the levers we can pull as decision makers are programs, policies, and the advice that we give. And again, remembering that we can do those small intensive programs, but at the same time, along with those, we need scalable, large-scale programs that we can bring to many people. Because the reality is families need support. They've always needed support, but I think the pandemic has highlighted this in a really key way. And one of the things we can do is supporting this notion of what's called relational health. What's the health of relationships that are going on, not about the individuals alone, but about their relationships, and are those relationships going well, and are they well supported, and is everyone in the relationship confident of their role in that relationship? One of the ways we can do this is through shared reading as a scaffold. How do we encourage shared reading and have that be part of something that holds and supports these interactions that go on? A program I'm involved with nationally and at the state level is Reach Out and Read. We give books out at checkups, but honestly, it's not just about checkups and giving the books. It's actually about the advice we give. It's about talking to families, and it's about this thing that I call the prescription to read, that this is the message that we're trying to give parents, not just let's talk about reading at the checkup. I want shared reading to be an everyday thing. I want it to be a regular thing because that's where we see the brain development differences. It's about changing and supporting behaviors at home. And I always point out, right, it's not just about giving away books. It's not just about giving people a pamphlet about the importance of any of these things, but it's an important, careful, evidence-based process of parental skill building and support. This is true for all of these programs, right? And in our case with Reach Out and Read, we're doing it through existing checkups. Already existing, skilled, trusted professionals are who we're utilizing. So to summarize, if we think about a public health approach to building healthy brains, we know kids will fall. That first big net that we have to catch them is the prevention net. It's got some big holes, but it's going to catch a lot of those kids. Great, wonderful, and keep them from falling further. But hey, we have holes. Okay, what do we do for those kids? We bring out a second net. It has smaller holes, but it's a smaller net because it's more expensive. This is your screening and your targeted interventions. This works if you have a decent prevention net, because then you don't have as many kids falling through. Still some holes. Those kids who fall through, that's your treatment net. It's a tiny net because it's expensive. Unfortunately, sometimes we rely on treatment all the time and we don't invest in those upper two nets. All levels of this are necessary. None on their own are sufficient. So we need to think about how we support all levels of this, even if we ourselves are not involved in a particular level. And finally, my closing slide. I always show this. This is my wife years ago reading to my son, who is now a college sophomore, by the way. It reminds me that parents are their child's first and best teachers, and that children are made readers in the laps of their parents. And if we can preserve this, if we can preserve this confident connection that helps high quality parenting happen over and over and over again as frequently as possible, that's where we'll see the big outcomes, the big results that really pay off for us broadly, societally in so many ways. My public facing social media, email, unfortunately, I have to run off soon to another obligation, but if there's other questions, the organizers can certainly get those to me, or you're welcome to contact me directly. And with that, that's my brief run through a lot of thinking and talking about the world of early childhood brain development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Doctor. Our next presenter is a great friend of economic development and early childhood programs in St. Croix County. I'm pleased to introduce Agnes Ring, who is the Executive Director of Family Resource Center, St. Croix Valley. Agnes will explain the Family Resource Center, what it is, and what it does. Welcome, Agnes.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you, Depeche. That was a wonderful introduction to the topics today. So when you saw the flyer for this workshop, you probably asked, what the heck does early childhood have to do with workforce development? Well, there is a saying, if you change the first 5 years, you change everything. So I'm going to quote some research conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank nearly 20 years ago. And one of the authors of that research is going to be one of our speakers today, Rob Grinwald. So that research done by the Federal Reserve Bank 20 years ago concluded, if done right, high quality, parent-focused early childhood development programs that begin at birth can make an extraordinary difference in outcomes for both the child and society. And I think we heard a lot of that just now from Dr. Nazvaria. So right here, I want to say in St. Croix Valley, we have a high quality early childhood development program that does all of that. So who is the Family Resource Center St. Croix Valley? Well, we are a nonprofit founded as a result of a community needs assessment in 1998. Our mission is to strengthen children, families, and communities by providing education, resources, and support. We serve families with children aged prenatal to kindergarten entry in 3 counties, Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix. We have a strong team of 9 parent educators, each with a degree in family studies, social work, or early childhood development, and they have certifications in many evidence-based programs. Our office is in Baldwin, and we are funded by grants, donations, and contracts. So why do we exist? Well, every year about 1,800 babies are born to families in our 3-county region. And many of the families, those families are lucky enough to have a strong support network from family and friends and the resources to meet the needs that come up. However, many of those newborns are born to parents who have no support system, and many are isolated. Some are homeless or face mental health or other risk factors. Our message today is we are there for families. Our focus is to help parents be their child's first and best teacher. Whether it's offering just opportunities to connect with other families for socializing or support, or it's lending more individualized support to families who have had trauma, unmet basic needs, or long-term challenges. We have the continuum of services to support them. And as Depeche said, every family needs support. So what do we do? Our programming falls into 3 categories. We have parenting support groups, parent education seminars and discussion groups, and then we have a long-term evidence-based home visiting program. We will have a link to our website in the notes, and there you can learn more about our variety of programs that we offer. So now let's talk about outcomes. I will highlight our most resource-intense program, home visiting. And this program is tailored to families facing risk factors such as poverty, substance use disorder, maybe a history of abuse in the family or homelessness. It is an evidence-based program. It's the model called Parents as Teachers, in which parent educators visit families twice monthly in their homes. Parent educators work in strength-based ways, supporting families with information and resources focused on child development, parent-child interaction, and family well-being. In that particular program, we served about 113 families with 1,600 visits. And most of the caregivers in those homes are in the workforce. So parent-focused early childhood programs help two generations, both the parent and the child. Research shows these benefits: improved kindergarten readiness, reduced risk for child abuse and neglect, improved family functioning, stability, and ability to navigate a variety of support systems. We partner with many, many organizations, including hospitals, libraries, public health, social services, homeless shelters, domestic violence centers, state agencies. This year, and with this workshop, sponsored by the St. Croix EDC and family-friendly workplaces, our goal is to increase awareness of the importance of early childhood. In the panel discussion, you will hear from one of our parent educators, Jelena Zimba, about how our launch of pilot partnerships with 3 businesses will increase access to some early childhood programming and help support those parents. Stay tuned, we'll learn more about it. Please reach out if you're interested in learning more about how Family Resource Center may support your employees. You will hear more directly about that from Sarah Weisky at the end of our Family Resource Center at the end of the program. So one of our longtime partners is United Way Success by 6. The vision of that organization is to make the St. Croix Valley the best place to raise a child. Making this the best place to raise a child also makes this the best place to live and the best place to work. That's what we mean when we say workforce development begins at birth. Now I would like to turn it over to Mark Tyler. Mark has many roles. You find him in many places. He is the founder and chairman of the OEM Fabricators, and he is the lead volunteer for family-friendly workplaces. In addition to that, he is the president of the board of the Family Resource Center, St. Croix Valley. So Mark, please take it away.
Hey, Mark, I think you might be muted still. Sorry about that.
Thank you for letting me know that.
You bet.
So can you see a screen or not?
Yep.
Okay, so at Family Friendly Workplaces, we really believe that elevating the success of families and children and building communities that thrive socially and economically, that's what we're all about. How do we do this? Well, we try to help build an environment that avoids adverse childhood experiences. Data tells us that adverse childhood experiences can derail a child's development and create poor outcomes long term. This is really a dual tragedy if we don't get this right, both from a societal standpoint, economically, and from an individual standpoint. We know that if we invest dollars early, that we can have great success. The returns on investment, 16, 18 to 1 when investing prenatally and in infancy. Imagine that or contrast that to somebody, a felon that's in prison, and we've got to try to reform them and bring them back to being a productive member of society. That's a very costly endeavor. So children and workforce are related. Demographically, we've got a big challenge. In 2011, we crossed over where we've got more folks leaving the workforce than we've got coming in. If we look at these blue lines, that is the St. Croix Valley, 15 and 19-year-olds coming into the workforce, and the red lines are 65 to 69-year-olds leaving the workforce. So if we look out, you can see that we are growing, but it's very small. If you look at the numbers out in 2030, we've only got about 1,500 people across the 3 counties for 5 years that are coming into the workforce. So, we're really talking about 300 people per year per county. I mean, it's a really difficult situation that we're in. Another way to look at it, today we've got about 65,000 seniors in our high schools. If we look out to kindergartners, we've got about 54,000. So we're losing about 15% of our major pipeline of people coming into the workforce. Look at unemployment. St. Croix County is at 3.3%. This region is very low. There's not a lot of improvement that we can make in bringing the unemployed into the workforce. There is an area that we can make an impact. If we look at the workforce participation rate, Wisconsin is at about 66% today. Historic high is a little over 70%. So if you look at that 4 percentage points and say, well, what does that mean if we can convince people to come back into the workforce? Each percentage point represents about 60,000 people. So that's, if we could get back to historic highs, we're about approximately 250,000 people that we could bring back into the workforce. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by creating a welcoming work environment. We do that by supporting families, children, yes, spouses, yes, but also parents and also pets are becoming more and more part of the family. So making room for life balance. At family-friendly workplaces, we have a matrix that looks at benefits, policies, practices, flexibility, and that creates a score which can potentially certify a workplace as a family-friendly workplace. So what does that do for you? It differentiates your organization from competitors for talent. And we know that competition is going to be intense. It helps you recruit and retain team members, and it helps support families supporting nonprofits in the community. We'd like to share more about our programs with you. Take a look at us at familyfriendlyworkplaces.org or reach out to us by email. And with that, Sarah, do we have Rob on the line?
We don't, but I do have a video that we're going to play.
Okay, thank you. And
just be sure that he didn't join us here. Oh, just 1 minute, please.
We're sticking to the truism in show business that the show must go on. So bear with us while we do some improvisation here.
All right, it looks as if Rob can join us in about 15 minutes or so. So I think what we'll do is skip ahead and start the panel, and then he can follow up after that.
Perfect.
All right.
I think that sounds great. And then he can be live and in person, and we don't have to share a YouTube video. Well, thanks everyone for coming. We're going to, like Sarah mentioned, we're going to keep rolling along into the panel discussion that we've got set up. Before we do that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Neil Klein. I'm the Chief Evangelist for Family Friendly Workplaces. We like to have fun with our titles. That's the role that I play there. And I work with Mark to try and promote those family friendly workplace practices that he was talking about. We've got a really good panel lined up today to talk more about the issues that have been discussed by all of the folks who've spoken already. And I think I'll run through the plan and then we'll get into it. So I'll introduce everyone on the panel. They'll give maybe a 2 or 3 minute introduction, kind of opening remarks about the work they do and how it relates to what we're talking about today. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. The way that you can ask a question is you can either put it in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat to make sure that if you ask anything, it gets answered. The other way, if you're familiar with the raise your hand function, you can do that as well, and I will keep an eye out for that too. We've got, I think, a very manageable group of folks here today to talk through things, so we can keep it informal and keep it light. And if you have questions, please do feel free to ask, and I can make sure they get directed to someone who's able to really address it. So with that, I think we'll go right into introducing panel members, and I'll introduce them, and then they'll give their opening remarks. So first, we have Carol Klein. She's the Special Education Director at Unity School District up in Balsam Lake, and she also happens to be my mother, but here she is, and we're gonna have her give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about the importance of early childhood education. So I really just kind of want to focus today on reading in our schools and how that all kind of works together. And so communication is really the basis of reading. If you are able to communicate and know words to use and vocabulary, then when you get to school, you can, that articulation and being able to say the words, then that leads right into understanding that these letters go together, and those letters have phonemic awareness skills that you can gain, that then those letters make words, the words make sense, and if you can fluently read, then you can then move into that comprehension of what you're reading and understanding how that works and communicating with people through reading and through voice. And so that really is the basis of learning in education, because if you can do that, then you can learn English, you can learn math and problem solving skills, science, and social studies. In schools, we use the first kindergarten through 2nd grade, we are learning to read. And then in grades 3 through 12, we are using reading in order to learn. And there's very clear distinctions with that. And so the basis of reading is very important to lead to students to be able to be successful in education and learning, and then successful in life. What we have seen in recent years is that students are coming to us in that 4 or 5-year-old age group that are unable to communicate their basic needs. And so that leads into students struggling with school, and it can start, and they struggle throughout the years that they're here. And as we learned, the pathways to creating that structure in the brain happens before those students are even in school. And so how this circles back to families and the workforce and the resources that people need to create those strong family bonds really does happen before students get to school. And so anything, that's basically why I'm here, to say how important it is that that structures are set in place before they get to school. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Carol. And we really appreciate those remarks. And we'll move right along to Kimber Lytle. She's the Business Engagement Director for the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association. Kimber, take it away.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to join you guys this morning. It's especially a pleasure given that I hail from Polk County myself. I grew up in Amory, and so I appreciate the opportunity to talk to my hometown area. So like you said, Neil, I'm Kimber Lytle. I'm the Business Engagement Director at WECA, the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association. We represent childcare providers across the state. And one thing that we have been working on, especially over the past few years in particular, is addressing our childcare access and affordability issues across the state. As your area knows, as well as the rest of the state, COVID has exacerbated an existing problem of finding childcare, and if you're able to find it, being able to afford it. We have some parts of our state that have 2 to 3 year wait lists for infant and toddler care, which, as you know, then creates a ripple effect with parents' ability to work, employers' ability to recruit and retain workers. So what we have been doing at WICA is building coalitions across the state with parents, employers, large statewide groups like the Counties Association, the League of Municipalities, the Rural Wisconsin Health Co-op, et cetera, building these coalitions so that we can advocate for a deeper investment at the state and federal level with childcare. Structurally, childcare programs struggle to make ends meet since they are primarily reliant upon parents' ability to pay. And then if they accept low-income children, then they have a Wisconsin Shares reimbursement for low-income children, a lot of times, which does not meet the true cost of care. So we have been meeting with communities all over the state that have been looking at ways to problem solve and try to patch solutions together to address their affordability and access issues while advocating for broader reforms, like I said, both at the state and federal level. So I just wanted to give a little overview of that. I look forward to talking about it further in the panel. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Kimber. And we'll move right along to our third panelist member. It's Jelena Zimba. She's a parent educator with the Family Resource Center, St. Croix Valley. Jelena.
Thanks, Neil. As you said, my name is Jelena and I'm a parent educator with the Family Resource Center. So I work with Agnes and I actually go into the homes to work with families. So I just wanted to cover just about some of the issues that we see with families that we're working with today. A lot of the families that we work with specifically in our home visiting programs are maybe higher risk or higher needs. So a lot of them are facing challenges with housing instability where there's homelessness or they're living with a family member or friend. And then they're moving frequently too. So that can be hard on kids too, moving school districts and all that kind of stuff. A lot of, as Kimber mentioned, a lot of families are facing issues finding daycare and paying for daycare. Some families don't know how to sign up for daycare assistance, or some families trying to get that new job and start daycare and get daycare assistance all lined up on that same day is very difficult to do. So we try to help families with that. Many of these parents are either raising kids alone or single parent families, or dad is or mom is in another home. So that can be very difficult to do. If you have kids, you know that a partner is a great asset. And so we're trying to help find those positive social supports in their lives, someone who can be a babysitter, someone who can help with car rides and that kind of stuff. Other parents are facing difficulties with their child's behavior. Now, I'm a mom and I've never faced difficulties with my child's behavior, but I know some parents do. Just having the realistic expectation of what kids are like and what it's like to be a parent, and why is my toddler throwing a temper tantrum because I didn't get the right toothpaste? Well, we can help you talk through that and bridge those gaps to help you understand what's going on in that little kiddo's brain, and make things just a little bit easier. And then one of the biggest issues that we also face is mental health issues. A lot of families are facing mental health issues, which then just have kind of a domino effect and affecting every single thing in their life. So sometimes we're able to get into those homes and build that trusting relationship with the family to say, hey, there's other help out there that you can reach out to that we think, would be a great asset for you. So those are kind of things that we are trying to work on in the homes to try to improve families to be able to raise successful kids and to be successful adults in the community too. The other thing I want to mention is Agnes talked about, we are also trying to create a pilot program to connect with businesses in our area. We want to be kind of an asset to businesses to give to your employees. So whether that means you hand out a simple packet of information about the Family Resource Center to all employees, or whether we hold a program right in your place of employment to try and do a baby and me or something like that, or anywhere in between. We are flexible, we are open, we can make a plan that fits your business. We just want to get our name out there so that families know about us, and so we know about families. So more to come on that.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Jelena, for that. Thanks everyone for their opening remarks, and we'll move into the panel. And I think one of the things that struck me hearing the doctor speak and then hearing all of the panel's comments is I think we've really focused in on the foundational importance of reading as a skill that is one that we all kind of take for granted because we learned it before we were really conscious maybe that we were learning how to do it, but it's a skill that we needed, and that the businesses we work for today rely on that skill learned back when we were quite young. And I wonder, Kimber, if you might be able, with your awareness of kind of statewide programming and also thinking about the intersection of that important issue of reading and of companies. You know, if you're a company right now and you understand and agree that reading is an important thing for a future workforce to be able to do well because it encourages communication and advances learning, what kinds of things maybe are you seeing around the state that we could think about as an example for a way that companies could work on this issue? Or how are companies engaging with early childhood in a way that might be interesting or useful?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So we have seen a lot of very innovative ways that communities, counties, et cetera, are starting to engage with childcare. Because again, trying to wait for a statewide or federal solution could take years. So we are seeing communities dig into it and try to address some of the issues themselves. So for some larger employers, again, like Quick Trip that has 4,000 employers at their headquarters, they are looking at actually starting their own childcare program, or Specialty Cheese down in Reeseville. We are seeing other communities where smaller employers are coming together and forming like a coalition, such as, say, up in Ashland, a bunch of employers and community members came together, formed a nonprofit, and they started their own childcare program called Evergrow, and they serve up to 90 children in the Ashland and surrounding areas. We're seeing other parts of the state where employers are purchasing slots in local childcare programs. So they could say, okay, I'm going to purchase 4 childcare slots in this program. My employees get first dibs at it, but it's a way for basically an additional infusion of money to help raise the wages of the workers. Because that, quite frankly, is the leading challenge for childcare providers, to raise the wage more than $11 an hour. So I forgot to mention before, just a little bit of some stats on childcare worker wages. So on average, childcare workers make $11 to $12 an hour. The majority of them do not have health insurance. So it's a very demanding job. And we see and hear from people all over the state that are hemorrhaging employees to Quick Trip, where you can make $15 an hour, you can have health insurance, et cetera. Or in Milwaukee, where Amazon just opened up a new distribution center, $20 an hour with a signing bonus. So it has been very challenging for programs that are reliant only upon, say, people's ability to pay, and potentially Wisconsin Shares reimbursement for low-income children, to raise the wage beyond $11 or $12 an hour, let alone offering health insurance. So what we are seeing in some communities is when employers are helping to, say, sponsor slots or whatever, basically getting additional money into the program so you can raise that worker wage, that it really helps to retain workers. And then another thing, I mean, again, Polk County has been a leader in this. We have been seeing some communities that are using Fund 80 with it as a part of the school funding formula, and using some of the property tax, quite frankly, to offset some of the childcare program cost, so they can raise the worker wage and potentially offer benefits as well. So it has been interesting and exciting to see the increasing interest from a wide variety of sectors across the state wanting to tackle these issues in their community. And there are lots of different approaches that are being tried right now to address the needs of their community.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that overview. And your mention of childcare and Fund 80 made me snap back to Unity, where I went to school. I know they've recently built a new child care center on the campus that the rest of the school is on. And I wonder, Carol, if you could talk about, I think Kimber touched on a lot of, the out of school impacts of having affordable and accessible childcare. But I'm wondering if you can talk about what Unity sees as the advantage for students in having that child care center. What does it get Unity from maybe an educational perspective? And that might illuminate some of the skills that we really want to see young children working on.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Neil. And I think that if you look at not just Unity School District, but there are several school districts that are doing exactly what Kimber was talking about, using that Fund 80 to help support childcare for students before they come to us at age 4 or 5. And so what it does afford us is it brings parents more connected to the community. It provides that, that when you start school at the age of 4 and your mom is saying goodbye to you, that's kind of a hard thing, that somebody else is going to, take over that kind of, and that move. And so knowing the district, knowing the people, and knowing that pathway and having an understanding of it, getting a phone call, having an understanding of how that process works, I think it just helps parents be more connected into our community. But at the same time, it does provide that affordable care for them so that they can, provide for their families, because we know that if a family can provide and make ends meet, and hopefully get to a point where they're not living paycheck to paycheck, then they get beyond that survival state. And if they can get beyond the survival state of their family, then they can really start focusing on that education as that next step to a better way of life. And so I think it just kind of all leads into that circle of what communities can do for families, what employees can do for employers, and just create that, in the philosophical way, the wonderful communities that we have up in northern Wisconsin.
Great. Well, I appreciate that explanation. And I think, Jelena, we haven't heard from you quite yet, but I wonder, one of the kind of undercurrents that we've been talking about are communication skills, but then I know also previously we've talked about the importance of resiliency, or the importance of giving students or giving children the ability to articulate, what's bothering them, and well, how are you going to fix that? Like that kind of an approach to life. And I'm wondering if you can kind of walk through what strategies you use with families that help teach those skills. And I think it might begin to illustrate the role that those skills can begin to play in life later on, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is a good skill to have, and to get kids to learn those skills, it's important as our jobs as parent educators to make sure that their parents have those skills, because there are a lot of adults who don't maybe know how to express their emotions or do it in a positive, healthy way. So kind of helping parents identify, well, what are your triggers? What do you do when you're stressed? All that kind of stuff. Some people don't know their own signs of that kind of stuff. So helping parents understand that is a great step to then help teach their kids the same things. Also modeling those things for families that say, you know what, your kiddo's looking for attention right now, whether it's positive or negative, it's negative, but they're looking for attention, and pointing out those signs to families so that they know, this is why my child's acting this way, or this is why my child's doing this. And then what's the next step? Helping that child communicate what they're thinking and what they're feeling too. So gonna go back again, books are a great way. We give away books about feelings and talking about feelings and that kind of stuff, so that the kids learn it at their level, as well as parents talking to them about that. So books is a huge way. And then just that understanding of regular child development, of toddlers have big emotions, and they're going to have big emotions, and how can we kind of harness it, and how can we kind of help them walk through those big emotions. Then, like I said, on the other hand, helping parents walk through those big emotions that they have as well. So it's kind of a full cycle thing. But if you've never been taught how to do that, even as an adult, it's not just something that's going to come to you. It's something that you have to work through every day.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate that answer. And I think, talking about learning those skills, Carol, I know you've shared some stories with us around the campfire back at home about, the experiences and I'll, for lack of a better term, I'll use the phrase maybe remedial education required with some children when they come into school, when it comes to social emotional skills, or even some, basic language skills that maybe children don't have. Can you speak to the change you've seen over the last couple of years about, the challenges that schools are having to face in trying to bring kids up to speed so that they don't fall behind after those first couple of years?
Yeah, that's a big topic, and we have seen over the past 10 to 15 years where students are coming into school unable to regulate their emotions. And when you get a student in at the age of 5 or 4 and they're unable to regulate their emotions with a lot of other students in the classroom, it can be somewhat scary for other kids if another student is throwing a fit, or as my mother would say, throwing a wall-eyed fit. But you know, when they don't get what they want, and they are unable to communicate what their needs are, unable to understand what the teacher is asking them, and then to turn to a friend and try to figure out, how do I handle that person taking away the toy I just had? You know, stuff like that happens for students and for learning. But I think as we you know, move forward and we look at how to help support them in schools, we have increased our curriculum to help with that social emotional learning. And so starting from you know, pre-K all the way through 12th grade, having them understand their feelings and their emotions at the different ages that is, you know, developmentally appropriate for them, to be able to increase their soft skills so that they can bring that into an environment, into a working environment, so that they can be better employers for people, employees, I should say. But in the schools, we have seen a lot of changes. We've seen a lot of students coming in needing more remedial help. We've recognized that there are students who you know, don't fit the greater need in the schools of, like, you know, you do, as the doctor had showed, the people falling through the cracks, and you have a net as you go down. We have that same thing. When he showed that, I thought, wow, that's our scale. It's just upside down for us. We build at the bottom where we can fulfill a lot of needs for students over what we would call the core curriculum or the universal curriculum. And then we have another net that would bring them into more of that intervention where they need a little bit more help. And I'm talking help in terms of academics and help in terms of behavior. And then we have another tier that would increase the number of interventions. And then at the top of that, we would have special education services. And so we do have those types of things. And as we're moving forward, we're catching more and more students are not being fulfilled in that bottom criteria. And how do we handle that as a school? And so we do see how students are coming in with less skills than they used to have prior, you know, 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. Well,
I hope that answered the question. I don't know, Neil.
I think it did. And I think it kind of segues into, I know we've got Rob who joined, and we want to get to Rob so we can hear from him, but I do think I've got one final question for Kimber. And then we'll, yeah, you're not off the hot seat yet, Kimber, sorry. And then we'll kick it over to Rob. But I think to Mom's point, you know, talking about the changes in maybe in a school setting from a programming perspective that schools are experiencing, vaguely related, the segue I'm trying to draw here would be to ask you, Kimber, to talk about within the legislature and within state and government, how much awareness do you see of these challenges, and what's the attitude of folks towards trying to address them? Is there strong interest? Do they need to be educated more fully about the challenges that are being faced and what can be done about it, or what's kind of the state of play in Madison?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, I mean, there is quite a learning curve, quite frankly, with some legislators on the importance of quality early childhood education. Not a surprise, you know, there are some people that still view it as babysitting, or when you want to talk about brain development, they kind of scoff at you and say, well, you know, my grandma raised me, whatever. And we talk about just how families have changed a lot, and how most families, the parents are in the workforce or would like to be in the workforce if they're able to find childcare. And we talk about the difficulty, again, in finding affordable, accessible childcare. But there's a big learning curve with some of these legislators. I mean, I've had one legislator say, you don't need any training with the teachers working with these children. All you need is love. And so it's like, as Carol had said, there are a lot of skills that these children learn in quality early childhood programs, that self-regulation that is so important so that they're ready to learn when they start kindergarten. Otherwise, as Carol had mentioned, if they are throwing tantrums, aren't able to control themselves, then it is disruptive to the classroom. The teacher has to focus so much time and energy, and that kiddo is not ready to learn. So again, when I had mentioned before, all the coalition building that we have been doing, that is so important to have employers, different parents, statewide groups, et cetera, reach out to legislators and talk to them about the importance of childcare and quality early childhood education in our communities and how that impacts everything. And legislators need to hear from a wide variety of folks and sectors to help convince them that it is a problem in my area. I do need to pay attention to this, and I need to help work toward a solution so that our community, our county, our region has quality, affordable, accessible childcare for our kiddos so our families can work, etc. So putting in a plug, if anyone is interested in advocacy, we are constantly meeting with legislators. Right now, we're in the process of planning regional meetings where we're bringing in employers to meet with their state reps, their state senators, to really reinforce that. Because again, like I said, not everyone is convinced that it's a problem in their area, or they may not value it, etc. So the more voices, the better.
Great. Well, I really appreciate those comments, Kimber. I appreciate the entire panel's time and all of their comments today. And I know we've got Rob here. So Rob, I'm just going to roll right into an introduction of you. Rob Grunwald is an economist with the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. And that's actually the entire introduction I have for you, Rob. So if there's anything else you want to add, please feel free. Otherwise, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thanks for adjusting your schedule so I could join you this morning, and good to see familiar faces on the call as well. And so I work as an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. I'm in our community development department. So the Minneapolis Fed is one of the 12 regional banks in the Federal Reserve System. And the community development function began in support of the Community Reinvestment Act, which was passed in 1977 to promote the economic resilience of low to moderate income individuals and communities through research, information sharing, and convening. So, and your area is within the 9th Federal Reserve District. Our Minneapolis district includes 26 counties in Northwest Wisconsin. I'll talk a little bit about the high public return from investing in young children. And it all starts with brain science, as you've been hearing, and I've been hearing you talk about the importance of these early years to help children get off to a strong start. And what we see is that investments early in a child's life are more effective than waiting years later, as they prevent expensive downstream costs to government. So there's decades-long studies that have measured the impact of providing children from disadvantaged environments with a high-quality early care and education for a program for vulnerable families, or a program for vulnerable families with expectant mothers or families with infants or toddlers. So summing all of the benefits across all of these programs relative to cost, up to $16 is returned for every dollar invested. And we see the savings to such things as reductions in the need for special education services, a lower need for social services, and reduced crime rates. And early investment can lead to higher tax revenue once children reach working age. Results from the Preschool program, which is a program that started in the 1960s, show that benefits can be passed on to the next generation. A recent follow-up study of parents who attended Perry as children, now in their 50s, shows that the children of those parents were less likely to be suspended in school and more likely to be employed as an adult compared with children of parents in a control group. The two-generation impact of early care and education includes both children and their parents. When a region has a strong early care and education system, parents are able to join the workforce and be productive at their jobs. In contrast, the lack of childcare can deter parents from entering the labor force, and unreliable childcare arrangements can distract parents and may require them to leave work early. A national study based on a survey of families with children under age 3 show that a lack of reliable childcare costs American families, businesses, and taxpayers $37 billion per year. Last year, the Minneapolis Fed partnered with the University of Montana to conduct a similar study of families with children under age 6 in the state and found similar results. Montana is the most western state in our district. The data in the Montana study also show that parents in low-income households face larger family financial stability risks due to childcare issues. Low-income families were 3 times more likely to turn down a job offer and 5 times more likely to quit their jobs than parents in high-income households due to childcare-related issues. Local partnerships like the one formed here in the St. Croix Valley across businesses, nonprofit intermediaries, providers, and government agencies are key to building community-level strategies to address the needs of families and make the region not only more competitive in attracting a workforce, but also one that makes smart investments in the future, and those are investments in young children. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I think that really helps put what we're working on here in perspective and helps to explain the larger social impact that can come from that. So we really appreciate your time and those comments. I think as we get towards, we're at the top of the hour and we've got, I think, 2 other orders of business, one of which I'm in charge with, the other one I am not. So I'm going to kick it over to Sarah, who is going to talk about an initiative from the Family Resource Center, and then it'll come back to me and we'll wrap up.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Weissy. I'm the Development and Communications Coordinator here at Family Resource Center, St. Croix Valley. And I want to quickly share with you the opportunity for businesses in our Tri-County area that we serve, so Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties. So as Agnes mentioned, our mission is to provide education, resource, and support to children or to families with children prenatal to kindergarten entry. And with a sustainability grant that we received from the state of Wisconsin, Department of Children and Families, Birth to 5 PDG grant, or award, I'm sorry, we are piloting a business initiative. So essentially what we would like to do is to offer another benefit to your workforce. We want to reach as many families as we possibly can, and we really can't let any children fall through the cracks. So as we have heard today from Jelena, our Family Resource Center parent educator, we're coming up with new ways to work with our business partners to fit their needs, for what works in their environment. But we have put together 2 options that I wanted to share with you. We want to also keep in mind that many times it's not the parents that are raising these children. It could be grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, friends. So it's kind of a group effort in raising these families. So 2 ideas that we have come up with, I'm going to share my screen here, would be, well, now they seem to have disappeared. Is a welcome baby bag. So now this bag is currently, or these items are currently shared to any newborn baby that is born in the hospitals that we partner with. So this is new. It's a reusable cotton bag, a board book, a onesie, and some other information that we are required to share, so like period of purple crying, a parent as teachers, checklist, and then ways to build attachment, and then babies cry, so be prepared. So that is something that we could share with your workforce. So anybody that's having a baby, you could share it with them. And then our information for our classes would be included in that as well, and contact information. And then the second item, because we realize that you may not have an influx of babies all the time. And to kind of go off of what we're talking about today would be, well, where did this disappear to? My apologies. It's a kindergarten readiness kit, which is really, I'm excited about. Well, where did, oh, here we go. So, with this, we like to call them lifetime readiness kits, actually. So we want to encourage these fine motor skills and developing those skills. So like a lacing bead set, triangular crayons, child-safe scissors, magnetic drawing boards, sticker books. You can see underneath each of the headings the benefits to each one of them. And our parent educators were instrumental in helping pick out what works best for the families that they serve. So these bags and kits will be provided to business partners at this time at no cost through funding provided by the state of Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. And information will be shared in the follow-up email that I'll send out after this workshop. So if you're interested, let me know. We'd love to work together. All right, Neil, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. And I think I want to take a moment before I let everyone go, just to remind, particularly, folks who joined today from businesses in the St. Croix Valley, that there is a real opportunity for you to become involved in the issues that you've heard about today. And it's through the organizations that are represented here, partnering with family-friendly workplaces, partnering with the Family Resource Center, talking to legislators or talking to people in your communities about the importance of these issues. It is not only about the lives of those kids today, but it's also about the lives of those kids in 20 years when they're working for you. And that connection, while it is a long ways away, comes quickly. I'm 25 and it feels like I've been around a really long time. It happened quick. And I'm not even that old. And so I think as we think about workforce development and take it from being something that can be used to solve an acute problem and expand our thinking about it to think about it in the long term and in the context of building people who can build the kind of communities and businesses that we want to have, this is a critical issue. And we are very fortunate in the St. Croix Valley to have so many organizations that are so capable to help with that. And all we need is your partnership. So get in touch with family-friendly workplaces, get in touch with the Family Resource Center, get in touch with your Economic Development Corp. We don't bite, and we would be very, very excited to talk with you about all of these issues and work through ways to partner with you and your company in whatever way works best for you. So with that heavy sales pitch at the end, thank you all for coming. You will receive a follow-up email with contact information for everyone who you heard from today, links to all of our websites so you can get more information. It also will include a feedback survey. We really appreciate hearing feedback from you, so please do take a couple moments to fill that out. And other than that, thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you around. All right, have a good one.